Buongiorno. Consentitemi di iniziare.
Allow me to begin with a short technical announcement.
Technical announcement for those of you who would like to follow us in English or French. English and French translation is provided. For those of you who are following us on the Zoom platform, you will be able to follow the event in English or in French. To do so, just click on the button Interpretation at the bottom of your desk. For those of you who are following us on the YouTube channel or on Facebook, kindly be informed that shortly after the closure of the event, a comprehensive synthesis of the event itself will be offered through the social media in English and in French. Ancora una volta, buongiorno.
Good morning once again. Honorable Minister Di Maio, Deputy Ministers Sereni and Terre, Ambassador Elisabetta Belloni, Secretary General of the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ambassador Ettore Sequi, Senator Petrocelli, Honorable MP Piero Fassino, Director General for Globalization, Sabatucci, Giuseppe Mistretta, Director for Sub-Saharan African Countries, distinguished participants. I know that there are very many of you connected from many different parts of the world. First of all, allow me to thank you for your presence for this digital event, the goal of which is to illustrate the very recent document titled Partnership for Africa, which was drafted by the Ministry for Foreign Affairs to many stakeholders. This is an innovative document which, once and for all, clearly defines the priorities and the geographical themes with a number of tangible actions that Italy will be focusing on. The African continent, as you know, is characterized by an extraordinary wealth of resources and economic potential. At the same time, it is a continent marked by a number of conflicts and unresolved crises. The heterogeneity, the complexity, the contradictions of the African continent do require a vast array of approaches and initiatives, not just on the African states' part, although they are the first, but also on behalf of the international organizations, be they regional or sub-regional, the international cooperation world, businesses, the world of academia. Italy has a long history of relations with the African continent. With its ups and downs, Italy's commitment in Africa has always been at the very core of our national interests. By establishing relations on the state level, on the local level, with NGOs, with civil society, the public opinion, and businesses. Roughly 8 years ago, Tuscany, the Tuscan regional government asked the Sant'Anna School to map all of the Tuscan stakeholders involved in a number of different initiatives in Africa. And at the time, in Tuscany alone, we identified over 500 different players who are active on the African continent. What better way to testify to the interest, the widespread interest towards Africa? Therefore, it was an urgent matter to come up with a comprehensive strategy for Africa, with which we share the same world and the same environment. I think that no other title, other than the one we chose, could have better described Italy's approach to the African continent. And I'd like to express to Minister Di Maio and to all of the diplomats at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and to all of the experts who contributed to the drafting of the document, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude for the extraordinary efforts. It was something we truly needed, and I'm sure this is something everyone can appreciate. Today's event will be a way to further disseminate the contents of the document to all interested parties, both in Italy and abroad. At this point, let me give the floor to the rector of the Sant'Anna School, Professor Sabina Nuti. It is an institution that I have the honor of belonging to, which has always been very focused on African issues. Professor Nuti, you have the floor. Thank you, and it's an honor for me to launch this initiative. As Professor De Guttri said, the Scuola Superiore di Sant'Anna is honored and proud to be able to cooperate on this major project, which began a number of years ago. It is a project which is characterized by cooperation with the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and the entire African continent. The Scuola Superiore di Sant'Anna is a public institution. It is a university, the goal of which is to focus on high-level merit and on supporting research, education, and in our mission to support Italy, and not just Italy, the activities that we focus on to support the African continent, or rather in cooperation with the African continent in various ways and in different contexts, is a fundamental part of our strategy, both in the past, in the present, and certainly in the future. Allow me to mention the fact that our activities fall within the realm of applied sciences, with social sciences on the one hand and experimental sciences on the other. In all 6 of the contexts we operate in the field of economics and managerial skills, law and political sciences, agriculture, medicine, healthcare, and engineering. Again, in all of these different contexts in which our university operates in, all the contexts that we work in as leaders in the Italian research and university field, again, in all of these contexts, we always try to make the difference. We always try to have an impact both locally, but especially internationally. As far as Africa is concerned, we have worked on a number of different projects, many of which were mentioned by Professor De Guttri in a number of different fields. Our goal is to make sure that we can cooperate with Africa's universities, but not only, through which we can support all of the talents present in Africa, especially when it comes to our PhD programs. We have a very high number of participants from Africa. And another element I'd like to highlight is that our PhD students at the end of their studies go back to the African continent. This is very important because only by working on building up skills, knowledge, and the values of the people we try to educate as civil servants, again, only by doing so can we build a future world which will be fairer and more cooperation-based. Cooperation with Africa is a strategic asset for the future as far as the Sant'Anna institution is concerned, and by doing so, we feel we can contribute to improving the world we live in. Thank you very much, Madam Rector. Thank you for the constant support you offered to all of our initiatives with the African continent. And at this point, it is with great pleasure that I'd like to give the floor to Luca Sabatucci, who is the Director for Globalization and Global Issues. Thank you. Good morning and welcome. In fact, drafting the document titled Partnership with Africa is the outcome of a constant and systemic dialogue we've had here at the Ministry and elsewhere with Deputy Ministers Terre and Sereni, with all of our colleagues in Africa, with our colleagues here at the Ministry, with the diplomatic advisors of the President of the Republic and of the Prime Minister. Despite a long-lasting tradition marked by dialogue, we were still lacking a strategic document when it comes to Italy's relations with the African continent. This is a bridge we are trying to gap today. Without wanting to describe everything Italy has done and everything Italy intends to do with the countries, with the African Union, both bilaterally and within the European or multilateral context. Nonetheless, we are presenting a document today which creates a system, including all of the main strategic guidelines that we will be acting upon. It is a document based on a cross-cutting approach, in which civil society and businesses can also give a crucial contribution, one on the same level as the one offered by public institutions. Therefore, it can support Italy as a system. Often, the dimension of our commitment in Africa is underestimated. It isn't perceived as it should be, and it is sometimes misunderstood. Today's event is a way of underscoring the importance of the relations with African countries, which are ancient, they are interesting, and they are increasingly important from the strategic point of view. At this point, it's a pleasure to give the floor to Minister Di Maio. Thank you very much to Mr. Sabatucci, General Director for Globalization. I'd like to welcome Your Excellencies, the ambassadors, the rector of the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, the two chairs of the Foreign Affairs Commissions, Petrocelli and Fassino, Deputy Minister Sereni and Terre, who are both present and who I'd like to thank for their support to the document we are presenting today. I am especially pleased to be here at this presentation because for the first time, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is presenting to the public a strategic policy document dedicated to Africa. The partnership with Africa is the outcome of a year's work here at the Ministry, a document which analyzes the present, but it looks to the future, especially. The African continent, from a number of different points of view, is the most dynamic continent in our contemporary era. It is the one with the most potential. There are a number of transformations which are underway and which are rapidly evolving. We wanted to concentrate all of this and express it to outline Italy's commitment in Africa by involving our institutions, our civil society, and our business community. Relations between our country and the continent are ancient and they are very deep. Their development owes very much to our diplomatic network, our embassies, our consulates, our cultural institutes, our trade agency offices, our development cooperation agencies. We owe a lot to the contribution of missionaries, volunteers, entrepreneurs, students, researchers, women and men who wish to cooperate and share. Now, with this twofold approach, the dialogue between Italy and Africa has grown. It has become what I would define as an all-encompassing partnership. We understand the importance of facing global challenges together, without which it would be impossible to deal with them. I'm thinking of a number of intergenerational issues such as environmental sustainability and climate change. And I'm also referring to unforeseen events such as the current pandemic we are experiencing. I'm also thinking of a number of other crucial issues for the African continent: the need to complete democratic transitions, the promotion of social and economic development, the promotion of security, the ability to counter terrorism and illegal migration. Along with all of these challenges, there are also a number of important opportunities in order to achieve mutually beneficial growth. Europe and Africa, Italy and Africa, have a lot to gain by intensifying our economic, intercultural, and interreligious relations. They have a lot to gain from our scientific and technological cooperation and increasingly close forms of political partnership. In the context of this multifaceted scenario, which were recently the subject of an interesting study by the Center for the Study of International Politics, CESPI, I'd like to focus on a number of aspects that large parts of our document are devoted to, beginning with Italy's political commitment. In recent years, we have witnessed the constant growth of institutional visits and the progressive expansion of our diplomatic network in Africa. These are essential developments to foster increasingly intense contacts with an increasing number of African interlocutors. The current pandemic has only suspended this positive trend by postponing new events by only a few months. In 2016, we opened embassies in Conakry and Niamey. In 2018, in Ouagadougou. Next year, we will be opening a diplomatic mission in Bamako, and we are already working on N'Djamena. Italy is also one of the few countries which has decided to keep its embassy in Tripoli open. It was reactivated beginning in 2017, which is further proof of the value we give to the dialogue with Libyan authorities. It is proof of our commitment to the full stabilization of the country to the benefit of the stability of the entire region. Our network of cultural institutes is also expanding. A few months ago, we opened a cultural institute in Dakar, but we want to increase the scope of Italy's cultural diplomacy in Africa by increasing the number of specialized staff at our diplomatic offices on the continent. We were also the first country of the European Union to establish in 2018 the position of a permanent representative to the African Union. And by doing so, we recognize the importance of supporting the regional integration efforts of African countries and the opportunity to expand their channels of political and economic cooperation. This increased diplomatic presence reflects the priority Africa has for Italian foreign policy along an axis which crosses the entire continent from the south to the north, reaching through the Sahel to the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, our common sea. Recent history shows that Europe's security largely depends on what happens in North Africa. Investing in this region and working to ensure that it is stable means investing in Italy's security, and it means achieving more effective results in countering terrorist networks and the trafficking of human beings, arms, and illegal substances. Not only that, we believe that security and stability will trigger a virtuous circle that will increase the economic, social, and cultural well-being on both shores of the Mediterranean and beyond that in the Sahel. It is here and beyond that Europe has found its true southern border, and it has to be supported so that we can overcome old and new fragilities, so that we can avoid escalations between states and within states. From this point of view, we are concerned with the recent events in the Tigray region in Ethiopia. The Horn of Africa, the Red Sea, are an area which is fundamentally strategic for the continent's balance. And in response to the many critical issues that characterize it, Italy can offer support and assistance and cooperation in areas which are essential for the stabilization of countries with which we have long-standing friendship. We're already present in a number of different crises areas with national contingents or with those of the European Union or the United Nations missions. Our commitment in the security sector is often accompanied by institutional support and capacity building activities financed by the ministry and carried out by staff of the Guardia di Finanza and the Carabinieri, who are experts in training and in transferring skills. We firmly believe in the link between security, peace, and development. And that's why our development cooperation commitment in Africa is of the utmost importance. 11 out of the 22 priority countries are African countries, and they have received more than 50% of the total donated resources distributed by Italy. All of the Italian development cooperation initiatives are carried out in full compliance with the principles identified by the UN's 2030 Agenda and by the African Union's Agenda 2063. We have a long-standing tradition of successful projects in Africa, and we are comforted by the knowledge that the people of Africa recognize, remember, and appreciate our efforts. Not only am I referring to the official cooperation offered by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but I'm also referring to other spontaneous and parallel forms of cooperation, those offered by associations, universities, religious bodies, and individuals who have made significant contributions to the progress of African countries and their populations. I mentioned security and development, but allow me to mention the need to further strengthen the economic partnership between Italy and Africa. In recent years, our country has been among the main foreign investors on the African continent. According to the most updated estimates of our Economic Observatory and International Trade, there are some 1,700 companies that can be traced back to Italy, employing more than 76,000 workers with a total turnover of 25.8 billion euros. The sectors of activity range from energy to construction, logistics, mechanics, agriculture, and pharmaceutics, just to name a few. This business presence, which we hope can intensify thanks to the tools envisaged in the Pact for Export, is in most cases supported by training programs and vocational training programs. This is essential in supporting the development of African peoples. We have often discussed the need to launch a Marshall Plan for Africa by thinking of large and complex industrial support strategies, which I do not think reflect the real needs of the African continent. I believe, in fact, that in Africa, a continent in which there is a very high growth in population, the real economic challenge doesn't lie so much in the industrial reconstruction. It lies rather in promoting training among the younger generations, supporting women, and in transferring knowledge and know-how. There is a huge potential which has to be tapped. Think of the number of invisible people, so-called invisible people, some 300 million people, according to UNECA sources, who live in refugee camps or who live in poor or peripheral areas, who don't have ID, who don't have electoral rights, who don't have access to the most basic services, without which it will be very difficult to include them in our productive circuits. These are the priorities for the international community in Africa. The transformations which will be happening demographically, culturally, economically, and politically will have an impact on African populations, but they will also have an impact on European populations. Due to its strategic location at the center of the Mediterranean and due to its historic capacity to listen, Italy is very much aware of the bond which unites our continent to Africa. For this reason, we will continue to work so that the European Union and all other international organizations can give Africa the political and financial attention it deserves. And I do hope that the launch of the new European strategy for Africa next year, during the joint summit with the African Union, can be a crucial development in this very direction. The European Union represents the most important economic partner for Africa. And this positive circumstance is also due to Italy's ongoing diplomatic activity on the European level, of which migration is only one among many elements in which there can be cooperation between Europe and Africa. And in this spirit of cooperation between the respective regional organizations, besides the African Union, IGAD, ECOWAS, and the G5 Sahel, with this period, we want to tackle the complex multilateral issues of our time, including the process of African economic integration within a continental free trade area. We do not have hidden agendas. We are convinced of the fact that peace, security, economic development, and social emancipation are common interests on both shores of the Mediterranean, in both continents. And I believe that this is our strength, our ability to exercise and disseminate a transparent soft power to achieve the maximum benefit for the greatest number of people possible. And by using the term partnership, we refer to a relationship between peers based on common interests, a union between peers who understand one another. We want this to be the foundation for the Euro-African dialogue that Italy has in mind. It has to be open, inclusive. It has to keep in mind the issues of good governance, the rule of law, respect for legality and human dignity. And examples include the Innov Elections project that we are about to launch in a number of African countries to support free, fair, and informed voting. It also includes the cooperation started with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights at the UN, with the goal of assisting the G5 Sahel Joint Force in adapting the region to the framework of compliance with international humanitarian law. Finally, I'd like to refer to two events in which Italy will be a leader in 2021. The presidency of the G20 and the co-presidency of the COP26 together with the UK. In both cases, Africa will be at the very core of our agenda, in line with the principle of finding African solutions for African problems, including through the participation of a number of guests from Africa. At the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting scheduled to be held in Matera on June 29th, An entire segment will be devoted to Africa, along with a joint session with the G20 Cooperation Ministers meeting scheduled the following day in Brindisi. We'll focus on international support to Africa and the health emergency caused by COVID, promoting effective cooperation within the context of the COVAX facility as a way of guaranteeing universal access to screening, treatment, and vaccines. An equal amount of space will be devoted to initiatives to encourage the subsequent economic reconstruction, which has to be lasting, widespread, and sustainable. Within the framework of COP26, on October 7 and 8, 2021, we will be hosting meetings with Africa, with Africa's foreign ministers, a number of national and international institutions, civil society, and businesses operating the green sector. We will discuss the relationship between environmental transformation and security, adapting to climate change, biodiversity, energy transition and renewable energies, and the struggle against desertification. From this long-term perspective, I think we can find a qualifying element of the strategic document that I have the pleasure of illustrating today. I invite you to read it. You can find it on the ministry's website, and to focus on the images and photographs it includes. Among these, I was deeply struck, and I'm sure you'll recognize them, by the covers of some issues of The Economist magazine. These front covers describe how the external representation of Africa is constantly evolving in the eyes of Westerners. In the past, it was looked to as a continent of crises. Then it was referred to as a double-digit growth continent. Finally, last year, it was mentioned along with the new race for Africa, this time to the benefit of Africa. Hopefully, the West size, also thanks to the contribution of our document, can move beyond these formulas, which recall an often unfair past. I do hope that we soon will be able to talk about a race of Africa towards the goals which include full economic development and a true all-around partnership with Italy and all countries that genuinely care for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and I would like to congratulate you on such an insightful presentation, which has highlighted some of the key features of this strategic document that I too would like everyone to read. I'd like to also thank you for having mentioned the close link between development, peace, and security. I also wish to thank you for having stressed the fact that all of these issues should be seen within the framework of the G20 agenda and the 2063 agenda of the African Union, and thank you for having mentioned Italy's recent activities that aim to implement the strategic guidelines contained in this document. Thank you very much for your presence, which has honoured us. I would like to now call on the chair of the Italian Senate's Foreign Affairs Committee, Senator Petrocelli. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Professor. I would like to extend my greetings to the Italian Foreign Minister and all participants on the occasion of this event, which aims to illustrate the Partnership for Africa document. I would like to speak on behalf of the Italian Parliament and specifically the Italian Senate's Parliamentary Committee to underscore that our country is going to focus on the African continent as a priority and will aim to implement the key strategies indicated in the document. Obviously, Parliament is poised to play a key role, obviously acting in unison with the government. And I would like to mention, amongst other things, strengthening political ties with African countries, and such a process can best be implemented via interparliamentary cooperation. Another example of activities that we're involved in is obviously visits which have been already implemented by this Parliament, and specifically by the Foreign Affairs Committee, focusing on Mediterranean countries, the Horn of Africa, and we're also pleased that a parliamentary committee visit took place in Niger when the president took office. So I believe with good reason that we can be key players in intensifying and deepening the dialogue between Italy and the European Union and Africa. I also believe that we can be instrumental in fostering cultural relations, the development of tourism and scientific cooperation. In conclusion, the role of Parliament is obviously that of working with its counterparts. And in this phase, obviously, the focus is on international cooperation between Italy and Africa, and clearly, together with my colleague, Mr. Fassino, the two Foreign Affairs Committees of the Italian Parliament will rise to the occasion. Thank you very much. Senator Petrocelli, and I believe that your words and the words that President Fassino will be sharing with us indicate that this is a team effort and the role of Parliament is key. I'd like to now call on the Honourable Piero Fassini, who is the chair of the Chamber of Deputies Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you very much, Professor. I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to the Italian Foreign Minister and all those who have worked to draft this document, because we're really witnessing a change of pace. We have dealt with Africa for many, many years, but public opinion has not perceived this. We obviously don't have a past like that of the UK and France when it comes to relations with Africa, and we know about, let's say, less fortunate examples of former colonial policies. People have thought that Africa was not high up on our agenda. That is not the case, and this occasion today shows that Africa is one of Italy's top priorities when it comes to foreign policy, and we can understand this. Also, looking at the fact that 1.3 billion people live in Africa at the moment. By the end of this century, in only 80 years, this figure will rise to 4 billion out of 11, which is the projected world population. 40% of the global population will be in Africa. And since nobody can surely think that the fate of 4 billion people is only about migration, clearly what is going to happen to these 4 billion people, events in Africa, are really and truly going to leave a significant mark on our century. And this is the century during which the fate of Africa is at stake. And therefore, the choice made by Italy is perfectly in line with such context. And the other aspect which I would like to stress is the nature of this approach. Historically, traditionally, Europe has taken a twin-track approach to Africa. One for the Mediterranean countries and the North African countries on the Mediterranean, and then an approach for African countries. So North African versus the rest of the continent in terms of different approaches. Now, we're looking at the continent as a whole. We should consider Europe, the Mediterranean, and Africa as a single vertical macro continent with common problems that require common solutions. This is a new approach which the document enshrines, and I believe that this is strategically correct. It is also in line with the importance attached to Africa by the European Union. I'm referring to the Africa Plan, which was adopted a few years ago by the EU, but I'm also referring to an important decision made by Ursula von der Leyen meeting in Addis Ababa between the EU Commission Commission and the African Union Commission. And this represents a quantum leap with respect to the traditional summits between the EU and the African Union. I think that we're really and truly seeing a strategic change. As the Minister pointed out, obviously there are huge strategic interests in Libya, for instance, and also referring to our relations with the Maghreb countries, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. I'm considering also our commitment for security in the Sahel, or important trade relations we have with Nigeria, Mozambique, and South Africa. And I'm also thinking about the African communities that live in our country. We have North African communities, we have Senegalese community, and many others. And obviously, we also committed to implementing effective cooperation, development cooperation policies. The presidency of the G20 and the co-presidency of COP26 are obviously going to be an important opportunity for us to strengthen this commitment. As Senator Petrocelli said, we're going to work as a team. The Parliament obviously is going to support the initiative and policy of our government with parliamentary diplomacy, parliamentary dialogue, engaging the parliamentary assemblies of African countries, starting with those that we consider to be priorities in our strategies. And as Professor Guthrie said, we obviously want to work as a system. We know that this is sometimes lacking in our country. That is one of our weaknesses. Whereas if we work as a system, we can demonstrate that we have a viable strategy. We can be an important partner for Africa and its 54 nations, and in our mutual interest, we can certainly look towards a better shared future. I would like to thank you once again. Obviously, we will be coordinating our Foreign Affairs Committee's work with the Italian Foreign Ministry. I would like to thank Minister Di Maio, Professor De Gutteri, and Mr. Mistretta for all of the hard work that has been already done. Of course, I would like to also thank Mr. Sabatucci. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Fassino. We, of course, have noted with great pleasure your commitment, and I was particularly pleased to hear you speak so positively about this document. And I say this knowing how you have, over the years, developed a significant experience in your different roles, and we're really delighted to hear that you have responded so positively to this. At this point, we would like to hear from some of the key players in Africa. We're also going to hear from our African partners. This is an opportunity for them to share their experience and to comment on this document. And we have with us the Ambassador of Mali to Rome, and we have the pleasure of giving him the floor. Over to you, Ambassador. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Minister Luigi Di Maio, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Your Excellency, Mr. Luigi Di Maio, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy, Deputy Minister, Foreign Affairs Terre, Honourable Fassino, Senator Petrocelli, chairs of the Italian Chamber of Deputies and Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, Mr. Sabatucci, Director General for Globalization, and Professor Sabina Nuti, of the Sant'Anna Institute, Professor Guthrie, Dr. Starace, CEO of Enel, Father Dante Carrato, Director of Medicis with Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset of my remarks to express my deepest gratitude to the Italian people, to the Italian Foreign Ministry and Ministry for International Cooperation for having invited me to this important meeting. It is a true honor for me to attend this event with so many eminent representatives. I'm referring to the Italian Minister.
Des commissions des affaires étrangères, soyez-en remerciés. Vous me donnez ainsi l'occasion, dans le cadre de ma mission d'ambassadeur du Mali en Italie, mais aussi de membre du corps diplomatique africain auprès de la Farnésie, de m'adresser à vous, Monsieur le ministre des Affaires étrangères, Mesdames les vice-ministres, Messieurs les présidents des commissions des affaires étrangères du Sénat et de la Chambre des députés, chers participants, ambassadeurs, représentants du secteur privé italien, organisations de la société civile qui, par votre présence, témoignez de l'intérêt particulier que vous portez au continent africain et à ses relations avec l'Italie. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, comme écrit dans le document que j'ai reçu, le partenariat avec l'Afrique définit les priorités et les principes inspirateurs de l'action de la politique étrangère italienne en Afrique, en abordant les questions continentales à travers une approche thématique, entre autres de paix et sécurité, de migration, de gouvernance et de droits de l'homme, de coopération au développement, de relations économiques et commerciales, de coopération culturelle et scientifique, et aussi des aspects géographiques en tenant compte de l'Afrique méditerranéenne, de la Corne de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Sahel et de l'Afrique australe. 2021, l'Italie sera au devant de la scène internationale à travers le G20, la présidence du G20 et de la COP26. Ce serait là une opportunité pour l'Italie de magnifier toute l'attention qu'elle porte à notre continent, l'Afrique. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, le partenariat avec l'Afrique pourrait être, de mon point de vue, une excellente opportunité pour réfléchir ensemble et échanger nos vues sur les perspectives d'émergence de nouveaux partenariats féconds entre l'Afrique et l'Italie afin de trouver des solutions idoines à nos préoccupations communes. Un tel exercice nécessite bien entendu la prise en compte des exigences d'un monde en perpétuelle mutation.
Of a world in perennial change. We have to consider the challenges stemming from the need to commit to peace. We have to also take into account the need to create jobs and ensure sustainable development and fight successfully against extremism, violence and terrorism. We also have to tackle the coronavirus pandemic, and we also have to take into account the economic needs of many African countries. We know that this is going to require that a new partnership be developed to further our common interests. And that is why I welcome the Italian Foreign Ministry's initiative and that of the Italian government with its Partnership for Africa initiative. It is clear that Italy focuses on Africa as being a top priority. Ladies and gentlemen, the implementation of this Partnership for Africa initiative through the adoption of a plan for Africa aims to foster a dialogue between the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation and the African embassies. I think I can speak on behalf of my colleagues in saying that we are prepared to support Italy in the implementation of this new partnership for Africa. I would therefore like to hope that we can work together so that with my colleagues we will be able to become ideal partners in Italo-African partnership as representatives of our respective countries in Italy. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is a vast continent which will see according to the UN forecast, 40% of the global population in its countries, and we know that 1/3 of these citizens are young, and they contribute significantly to progress. We need to obviously implement good governance, democratization. We need to enhance and strengthen political and institutional stability within the framework of a macroeconomic context for the promotion of the region and sub-regions. We obviously are aware of the positive impact that such a partnership can have on social, political levels and for the good of these African societies, and yet we know that much remains to be done in our continent. We know that the world is closely connected, and therefore it is in our mutual interest to bolster international cooperation and the involvement of private organizations and civil society. When it comes to the latter, I would like to attract your attention, Mr. Minister, to the role played by the African diaspora and the role it can play for the promotion of relations between Italy and Africa. I know that Act of Parliament 125 of 2014 focuses on the community of migrants in Italy, and this is part of Italy's new cooperation strategy. And I know that one of them was appointed within the National Council for Development Cooperation. We have just witnessed the 4th edition of the Italy-Africa Business Week Forum, which was organized by the African diaspora in Italy. And this forum's aim is to strengthen trade, economic and industrial relations between Italy and the continent. And this is proof of the love that the diaspora has for Italy and underscores the role that the diaspora can play not only in the relations between Italy and Africa, but also and above all in the implementation of the Plan for Africa developed by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. I cannot end without mentioning the excellent relations between Italy and Mali, my country. Bonds of friendship and brotherhood have been further enhanced thanks to the visit of Her Excellency, the Vice Minister to Bamako. And I would like to stress this, the diplomatic efforts made by the Italian government in its cooperation and in the visit to Bamako is a clear sign of the importance that our relations have for you. We obviously are working closely together in the fight against terrorism in the Sahel, and this is a clear evidence of the friendship that Italy has, and it is in this spirit of rapprochement that we welcome the opening of an Italian diplomatic representation in Bamako. My president, His Excellency Bandao, President of Transition, has made the following remarks on the occasion of Emmanuel Terre's visit in late October, and I quote: Italy's decision to come to Mali in a particularly complex moment such as this and to open an embassy is an act of love. I know that this love is mutual, and I know that this strategy developed by the Partnership for Africa will strengthen this. To end my remarks, I would like to welcome once again the Partnership with Africa initiative, which gives me the opportunity to forge and consolidate this mutually beneficial partnership. partnership, and I am at your complete disposal to support you in the implementation of Italy's new cooperation strategy through the different actions, the 6 pillars, and the political guidelines that Italy has identified to continue its dialogue, especially with the Sahel in such a difficult moment for our region. Thank you very much.
Grazie a lei, ambasciatore.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I would like to also thank you for having expressed your full support to, let's say, enable us to implement this initiative. We have 2 more presenters now. The CEO of Enel, Mr. Starace. I would like to thank you and thank Minister Di Maio, Vice Minister Terre, Vice Minister Sereni, and Elisabetta Belloni, Ambassador Belloni, for the extraordinary work that is being done for this important Partnership for Africa initiative. We have obviously followed, let's say, the various steps that led to this initiative. We're very pleased with this final version and the 10 key areas of action that are featured in this partnership. Obviously, we're particularly interested in the 3rd area, that is economic development, and we're particularly active. We're investing at the moment in 5 African countries in the field of renewable energy, so solar plants, wind farms that can drive, say, the economic development of Africa. In the near future, we will also be promoting initiatives to facilitate access to energy. We know that Africa as a continent still has a large number of its population that have no access to energy. And together with the UN Sustainable Energy for All program, we will be working to implement sustainable SDG number 7, which aims to give all access to sustainable energy at accessible costs. We're talking about 600 million people who in Africa have limited or no access to electricity. And obviously this increases social disadvantage and creates hindrances for inclusion, also in terms of labor. So we will implement a number of initiatives to direct significant investment in the area of energy infrastructure in Africa. We launched an initiative called Renew Africa. This was discussed in Europe because we would like this to become an initiative that could include all of European players and the European Union in particular, even though it is an initiative that Italy has developed. The aim being that of helping countries implement laws and regulations which will make investing in Africa more attractive and less problematic. We intend to do this, and this is something we're fully committed to, because we've seen that when initiatives of this kind have been developed, great investment opportunities can follow. Africa is not seen as a distant, adventurous place, but as also a big market that needs investment. There are 3 key issues. Africa needs a patient and long-term view. This is true of any part of the world, of course, but in Africa in particular, one has to be realistic when it comes to the time frame that are to be the context of our project. So one shouldn't panic if things can't happen overnight. It is important to cooperate, to invest and to trade with Africa, but we have to do this, obviously, developing a system of small and medium-sized enterprises and tapping, let's say, the extraordinary entrepreneurship that exists in Africa, which, however, requires infrastructures, a legal framework, and let's say, certainties in order to grow from micro to macro levels. And then there are some global trends that are underway in Africa that can certainly be a source of misunderstanding when it comes to development trends. I'm talking about the global phenomenon of urbanization. We know that big African cities are sprawling, and we know that development in megacities is essential. It is fundamental to be able to have access to infrastructures so that cities can have a good quality of life. This is true of everywhere in the world, Latin America, Asia, as well as Africa. And this is happening, and we're particularly focusing on the development of urban Africa, which is becoming, let's say, something different from what we have seen in the past. So this is a great moment for Africa. There are many opportunities for the development of this great continent, and we are confident that Italy can play a key role, both in terms of the technology it can provide and in terms of the, let's say, peaceful approach that Italy has always taken around the world, and also on account of the fact that we have always felt very close to this great continent, not least because of the presence of the Catholic Church. And this is a fitting introduction to Don Dante. It is great to see you, albeit only virtually. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Starace, also for having underlined how important it is to have synergies between the business world, technology, and politics. Thank you also for mentioning religion. And at this point, it's a pleasure to give the floor to Father Dante Carraro, who is the director of Doctors with Africa, Medici con Africa, one of the oldest organizations with a focus on Africa. Father Dante, you have the floor. Thank you. Italy's G20 presidency in 2021 is beginning with a strategic document, the Partnership with Africa, the so-called Africa Plan. And it underlines Italy's guidelines for foreign policy in the upcoming years. Let me just mention how important Africa is. Having Africa at the center of our actions is very much in continuity with our actions, but it's also a way of truly turning things up a notch compared to the past. It is something that we are truly enthusiastic about. We fully support this choice, also because our very name focuses on Africa. Medici con Africa, Doctors with Africa. This is a choice we made 70 years ago with the belief that the future will be played out on the African continent due to a number of reasons. The document also mentions the increasing importance of Africa, which goes to show that the upcoming challenges we face, which are, of course, very complex, including governance, human rights, demographics, migration, climate change, and trade and economic partnerships, and cultural and scientific cooperation. All of these aspects have to be dealt with. They have to be turned into opportunities with Africa as a way of creating a cooperation-based partnership together with Africa. The word "with" is very important for us. And as far as Italy is concerned, with its heritage of missionaries, operators, volunteers, Italian cooperation has been very active in the past, with a lot of its shortcomings too, of course. But think of how many ways it has shown its friendship, its skills, and professionalism, always sharing these elements with Africa. Italy and Africa have to be together to build a future marked by opportunity and growth for both. Italy and Europe on the one hand, and Africa on the other, together. A second point I'd like to underline is the fact that Africa is not a single entity. Africa is a mix of differences of geographical areas. It is very diverse. A number of African countries have grown with political and economic and social systems, including welfare systems, which were structured and which have improved very much in recent years. Think of East Africa, including Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. They may be fragile, but they are structured. And think of a country such as Ghana, which has a very good healthcare system, and not only that. And a number of other examples come to mind, although these are the countries I know best. There are other countries in which there are major shortcomings when it comes to human development due to weak education and healthcare systems in terms of infrastructure, in terms of technology, innovation, and human resources. I won't mention any names, but we do work in South Sudan and the Central African Republic and Sierra Leone, all of which are countries which have some major frailties, without even mentioning the COVID emergency. In fact, this pandemic has had an impact, and it has in fact amplified the frailties which already existed. Lancet magazine, the well-known international publication, in a very recent editorial mentions how Africa's health indicators run the risk of going back 20 years in terms of infant mortality, in terms of vaccines and so on, due to the pandemic. Without a basic healthcare system, a country cannot develop political, economic systems. They cannot develop adequate universities, which are crucial when it comes to setting up partnerships. And let me give you a positive example. Uganda, a country which has grown from many different points of view in recent years, a country in which the flow of migration has drastically declined, which goes to show how all of these things do have an impact on the challenges we face. An NGO such as ours, which has been working in Africa for the past 70 years, 8 countries, 23 hospitals. We have training schools for nurses, obstetricians, and physicians, is more than ready to set up partnerships with institutions, with the corporate world, as Mr. Starace was mentioning, with Enel, with ENI, with universities, with bank foundations and private entities, be they Italian and African, together in a partnership. All of this can be a way of fostering an adequate development of these countries. Health can be a driver of growth and development. And let me conclude by saying that Prime Minister Conte, in light of the G20, which will be chaired by Italy, and I'm thinking of the Global Health Summit, which will be held next May. Again, in view of all of this, Prime Minister Conte underscored Italy's commitment by saying that Italy is committed to guaranteeing universal access to vaccines for Africa and with Africa. This is essential also when it comes to COVID. And we also want to focus on strengthening Africa's healthcare systems. This is Italy's commitment. And CUAM and Medici with Africa is more than willing to cooperate for and with Africa to guarantee a future of development and growth for everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much, Father Dante, for all of your remarks. Thank you for your commitment to the implementation of this strategic program. Minister Di Maio, Deputy Ministers, Presidents of the Parliamentary Commissions, distinguished speakers, this event comes to a conclusion with these final remarks. Let me express to all of you my deepest gratitude for your participation. Thank you for having finally given our country a credible strategy towards the African continent. The document you presented today, Minister Di Maio, is a major opportunity, as President Fassino and Father Dante were mentioning, for Italy. It's an opportunity to bring about a new, to turn a new page when it comes to our relationship with Africa, one based on shared values and interests. Allow me to suggest, as moderator, how important it would be in the near future to have a yearly or biannual assessment of the implementation of the contents of the document. This would increase its credibility. It would allow us to assess how up to date it is when it comes to dealing with the issues we mentioned. Italy's commitment in Africa may have been perceived so far as individual pieces of a puzzle. Pieces which we were waiting to put together so that we could have a more all-encompassing and cross-cutting approach. Once the puzzle is put together, it will allow us to have a general overview of Italy's commitment in Africa. This is the goal we have with the document, and it will be to the advantage of everybody. First of all, to Italy. Also because I'm sure it will be diversified and it will be marked by many different colors, such as the logo we have given to the document. Each piece of the puzzle will be able to shine in a different way compared to the past, stronger compared to the past, before all the pieces were joined. Distinguished Minister, distinguished authorities, with the new document on the partnership with Africa, we are entering a new phase in relations with Africa. It is up to every one of us now to act and to implement the contents of the program. I wish all of you the very best. Having said that, we have now concluded the first part of the event. We will now have a short break to allow for the disinfection of the hall before we will begin with the second part of our event, during which the ministry and other stakeholders will be presenting the very first output of this strategic project. We're referring to the Innov Elections project, which was already referred to by a couple of speakers. And therefore, we will be breaking for a few minutes. Thank you very much for your participation. See you in a few minutes.
Bentornati. Partiamo con questa seconda fase. Do ancora una volta il mio più caloroso benvenuto alle viceministre Emmanuel Terre e Marine Sereni, al Giuseppe Mistretta, direttore centrale per i paesi dell'Africa subsahariana, a tutti gli ospiti, in modo particolare alla commissaria dell'Unione Africana, Madame Minata Samate Sesuma. Just a quick technical information, should you wish to...
Un'informazione tecnica: per la traduzione simultanea in inglese ed in francese dalla piattaforma Zoom basta cliccare interpretazione nella parte bassa dello schermo per selezionare la lingua.
Nella sessione precedente abbiamo avuto occasione di soffermarci sul nuovo piano progetto strategico. In questa seconda sessione invece vorremmo raccontare molto brevemente, di maniera sintetica per quanto possibile, un primo ambizioso progetto con il quale il Ministero degli Affari Esteri vuole iniziare l'implementazione del progetto strategico. Questo è un progetto, si chiama Innov Elections, è gestito dalla Scuola Sant'Anna in collaborazione con ECHES e UNITA. Il tema di questo progetto, finanziato generosamente dal Ministero degli Esteri, è prettamente collegato a quello che dicevamo in precedenza: rafforzare le capacità degli Stati africani di gestire le elezioni secondo standard internazionali. In fondo, elezioni ben condotte a qualsiasi livello garantiscono stabilità politica, abbiamo visto essere elemento fondamentale.
We've seen is essential when it comes to attracting foreign investments and to boost national economies, to increase employment, especially among youth. And by doing so, it can also prevent economic migration. Well-managed elections can also avoid bloody domestic conflicts, which can often turn into international conflicts. They also strengthen the national and international public opinion's view regarding the credibility of elections, and therefore it supports the rule of law and respect for human rights. The Innov Elections project we are about to present has this very idea in mind. It is also very much linked to the current pandemic because it is a project which can be worked on remotely in a moment in time in which in-person training or capacity building activities cannot be done. Let me begin by giving the floor to Giuseppe Mistretta, Central Director for Sub-Saharan African countries, for a brief introduction to the project. You have the floor, sir. Thank you very much, Professor De Guthrie. I wish to thank the two Deputy Ministers, Marina Sereni and Emmanuel Terre, who are with me for this presentation. I also wish to thank the authorities who are connected with us, Madam Commissioner of the African Union for Political Affairs and the Chairperson of the Electoral Committee in Ethiopia. As Professor De Guthrie was mentioning, the project is titled Innov Elections. It was financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it is something that our Department for Globalization and for the African Union strongly believes in. We immediately believed in this project because it covers a crucial part of democratic development and governance and human rights, which is something we mentioned during the previous session as well. Elections are always critical in Africa. Despite there having been very many, 20 last year and 10 this year, elections are always a moment in which it's difficult to obtain data, it's difficult to find people. The organization of the administrative sector is always complex, and therefore a project that can allow to support the electoral process goes in the direction with which we wish to bridge Italy's desires, academia's desire, and Africa's desire to support these processes with the contribution of the European Union, the African Union, and the UN. This project brings together all of these different elements. It brings together the African Union, the ECES Foundation, which is a European foundation financed by the European Union. It brings together the United Nations body pertaining to training, and it also brings together the Santana institution in Pisa as a way of supporting electoral processes. It is also a project which allows us to diversify our more typical actions towards Africa, namely capacity building. It allows us to diversify our actions because, as a minister was saying, often there are operations worked on by the Guardia di Finanza or by the Carabinieri to control the territory and to control financial flows and other aspects, whereas this project truly allows us to focus on something crucial, namely elections, by working with new partners, which are the usual ones we cooperate with, and which have a major presence in Africa, which can be further developed. And we can also work with countries other than our 11 initial partners. And over time, of course, we will certainly be able to broaden the number of countries to include others as well. This, of course, is happening in the COVID era. And as the next speakers will explain, for the time being, we are working remotely with distance training, allowing those who work in the electoral committees in Africa to receive training. We chose the countries with elections coming up, but again, I'm sure that the list of countries will be broadened in the future. And let me conclude by reminding you of the fact that the capacity building sector is also linked to training and education in a broader sense. And as the minister said at the very beginning of his speech, training and education are essential when it comes to the future development of Africa. Africa doesn't just need investments. It doesn't only need the financial side of things. It also needs professional training and training on human rights. That is essential. Having said that, let me give the floor to Professor De Guttri, who will introduce our next speakers.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your presentation, and thank you for having stressed something that is very dear to me, of course, capacity building as a key instrument to implement international cooperation. Now I would like to call on Fabio Bergiacchi, who is the Executive Director of the ECES Foundation, and he's going to illustrate in detail the Innov Elections project. Fabio, over to you. Thank you very much, Professor Guttri. Thank you for having given me the opportunity to speak on this occasion. I would like to thank Minister Di Maio, Deputy Ministers Sereni and Terre. I would also like to thank the speakers who, with their interesting remarks, have laid the foundations for the implementation of this partnership. I would also like to thank the EU Commissioner for Political Affairs, Inati Sarati, the Chairperson of the National Election Board of Ethiopia, Ambassadors Mistretta, Lobasso, and Mr. Scarpellini from and also Professor De Guttri and the Foundation for the activities we carry out in Africa. For those who don't know ECES yet, this is the European Centre for Electoral Support. We are a not-for-profit foundation based in Brussels, but let's say Italy has an important role in this organization because I've had the privilege of forming it and heading it together with Professor Manzoni since 2010. We have supported democratic election processes in a number of countries, mainly, but not only in Africa and the Middle East, through funds made available by the EU and by member states of the European Union. ECES aims to promote sustainable democracies with operational and logistical support for electoral processes and with training offered on all the different aspects of an electoral process involving all key stakeholders. We don't only work with the bodies that are responsible for managing electoral processes in different countries, that are of course the main ones. We also work with the press, the media, including social networks. We wage a war against fake news. We work with political interlocutors and institutions that deal with electoral disputes. We also work with law enforcement bodies to ensure that elections can be held in a safe environment. And we work with observers and those who work in the area of electoral civic education. We also promote the involvement of young people, women, and marginalized communities so that they can fully participate in electoral processes. Our strategy is known as support to the electoral cycle, to implement support initiatives for democracy and electoral processes, and this is consistent with European values and the policies of the EU and its individual member states. The aim is to facilitate those joint initiatives involving the European Union and member states, which recently have also been identified as Ms. von der Leyen and Mr. Borrell as Team Europe initiatives involving the EU and member states that we have the ambition to support. Training, of course, is one of our major areas of competence. We think it is important to have a cooperation system based on equal footing between different stakeholders in a South-South approach. We've trained over 120,000 people, and we believe that sharing knowledge and what has been learned by the various electoral stakeholders, together with an exchange based on virtual meetings, can ensure systematic exchange between North and South. We started in Jordan and then continued in Ethiopia. We worked with the Santana School, and we're now going to extend our initiatives, distance learning initiatives, to 11 African countries, as Ambassador Mistretta pointed out. The first 11 countries that have elections coming up shortly. And we do this with the 6 African regional organizations that provide electoral assistance and observation covering all 54 African countries. Clearly, this would not have been possible without the precious support given by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation within the context of this new partnership. Innov Election is the result of this cooperation between ECEX, Santana, and the United Nations. It is the result of Italian, European, and African expertise. We believe that there has to be a South-South and North-South approach to sharing our best practices, and we also aim to contribute to preventing electoral conflict and peaceful concessions. Also, with our partnership with the Santana School, we also focus on conflict management for electoral leaders. We also look at developing leadership qualities for electoral administrations. We obviously are in line with the challenges of the pandemic. We continue, as of March 2020, to support our partners, notwithstanding the operational difficulties that are linked to the COVID-19 pandemic, which impacts elections. This Innov Elections initiative is crucial because it is also the first form of cooperation between the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and ECEX. And I would like to point out that as an Italian, this is particularly significant. I've always worked abroad, never in Italy, but always for Italy. And this is a reason for me to be particularly pleased and proud. We're very happy to cooperate with the institutions of my country, with the institution I created, and we're very keen to continue working in this partnership with Africa, a continent that's very dear to me, with which I have been involved over the past 2 decades. I would like to end by thanking the Italian authorities once again, and in order to illustrate the activities of Election, we have prepared a short video which, with Professor De Guttri's help and with the help of our technicians, we would like to share with you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie a te Fabio per tutto il lavoro svolto e ben volentieri facciamo partire il video.
Italy has long played a central role when it comes to development cooperation with Africa, both at the national and European level through the definition of policies and adoption of measures, and financial instruments supporting African states. Africa is at the core of Italy's international and development cooperation plans, and is therefore a priority partnership based on equality and multidimensional aspects. As recently stated by the Italian Minister for Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, Luigi Di Maio, this partnership covers a variety of topics of common interest, such as the economy, democracy, human rights, the role of women, youth, and much more. Italy's support to democracy and good governance in Africa is part and parcel of its new strategy launched on December 15th, which includes the official launch of the strategic project Elections. This project, financed by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation through its Directorate General for Global Affairs, is implemented by the Santana School of Advanced Studies, the European Center for Electoral Support, and the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, known as UNITAR. Since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, elections have been postponed in 75 countries and 8 territories so far. To face the challenges posed by COVID-19, a new concept of distant live coaching and pre-recorded capacity development approach was developed by ECES and Santana in May 2020. This successful partnership between the two organizations has been ongoing since January 2018. Based on this concept, a specific project was developed, first targeting one country to then unfold across the African continent. It was submitted to the Italian Foreign Affairs and Cooperation in July 2020, which announced its decision to fund it. On the 15th of December, we are seeing the launch of the Elections project, also underlining the swift approval process from the Italian ministry. Elections will target 11 African countries and 5 regional African organizations that have consolidated diplomatic and economic relations with Italy. Phase 1, national level. The selected countries have been identified by the Italian MFA for a first pilot phase. Ghana, Senegal, Niger, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Mozambique, Nigeria, and Mali. Phase 2, regional level. Selected African regional and sub-regional organizations and secretariats of networks of electoral management bodies in Africa. The Community of Sahel-Saharan States. The ECOWAS Network of Electoral Commissions. The Electoral Commissions Forum of SADC countries. The Election Observation and Assistance Unit of the Economic Community of Central African States. The Election Observation and Assistance of the East African Community. Through Elections, a range of activities will be proposed to each of these countries, including Senior Electoral Advisory, Santana School of Advanced Studies, and ECES tutoring. ECES copyrighted trainings such as LEAD, LEAD-Q, PEV, and Media Monitoring and Institutional Communication. Online Master in Electoral Policy and Administration MEPA, supporting the digitalization of electoral processes, development of new MEPA modules. The Innov Elections project embodies the joint commitment of Italy, ECES, Santana, and UNITAR to increase cooperation with our African partners in this difficult time. At a time when the coronavirus pandemic has impacted so many electoral systems, this innovative capacity-building concept is a solution that will provide many more opportunities to come.
Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this video, which provides us with a summary of Innov Elections. And now I'm going to call on Elisa Creta, Senior Researcher at Santana. She will be giving us some details on the contents of the different modules, and she will be illustrating the MEPA Master's Programme. Over to you. Thank you very much, Professor, Vice Minister Terre, Vice Minister Sereni, Director Mistretta, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to briefly illustrate one of the tools that we have designed to reach our objectives. Our Masters, which was launched in 2015 for the first time, the Masters in Electoral Policy and Administration, together with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITAR, and ECES, European Centre for Electoral Support. This is a university Masters, which is provided online. It is mostly asynchronous, and it is based on UNITAR's learning platform. It is unique in the world. There's no other Masters offered anywhere else on these topics, and it is also unique given that this is a purely online program, which brings together participants from all over the world who are able to increase their knowledge on different topics. They work on the issues that are the core topics covered. They share best practices in electoral processes through different learning and teaching strategies based on experience, and in so doing, it is possible to obtain the result of peer-to-peer participation and teaching. An internet connection is all you need to follow the master's program, which was designed precisely to meet the needs of students living in developing countries, especially those who are also working. It lasts a year, but it is possible to complete the program in a 2-year period. At the end of the cycle, after having submitted a final project, students will be awarded first-level masters issued by the Santana Institute. It is possible to opt for in specific subject-based modules. The program is currently available in English and Arabic. It will be made available also in French and Portuguese, so as to cover the main languages spoken in the African continent. The beneficiaries of Innov Election will be able to attend 420 modules. This is the complete range of modules offered, and they will be able to attend the whole, let's say, range of lessons being awarded first-level masters. There are 19 modules in all, which focus on the fundamental strategic aspects of the entire electoral process. Other 6 will be added starting in 2021 within the framework of this project, with a view to meeting specific training needs of African beneficiaries. I will just mention one out of the many. Electoral process management during pandemics or in health emergencies, public health emergencies. The Masters offers an approach that is not only aimed at capacity building, but also capacity development and experience sharing involving participants, lecturers, teachers, and experts. This is a hybrid methodology that is based on synchronous and asynchronous lectures with individual and group work and creation of working groups which enable students to discuss themes and concrete ideas. It is also possible to identify individual, let's say, coaching paths with Innov Election and with this master's. We want to make available a training process which is absolutely unique for the benefit of our African students with Innov Election, and with our masters we wish to make an additional concrete contribution to improve the transparency of electoral processes. The aim is to, yet again, support training of African professionals together with African colleagues in a North-South and South-South cooperation framework. And we also want to support the training of professionals who will be able to manage professionally upcoming elections, and this, we know, will strengthen the economic well-being and peace processes of their communities. And this is something we're particularly proud of and honored to be involved in. Thank you very much for this overview of the contents and methodologies that are used. And now it is a great pleasure and honor for me to call on Her Excellency Madame Minata Amatei Sissouni, African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs. You have the floor. Thank you very much, moderator. Your Excellencies, Minister Di Maio, Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Your Excellencies, Vice Ministers, Chairperson of the National Ethiopian Board of Elections, dear friend Fabio, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs for having organized such an important meeting and for having involved me in this event, which is of huge importance for the African continent, and it is of great relevance in this new partnership between Italy and Africa. I have followed the first half of this webinar, and I would like to once again congratulate the Italian government for this new program for African states. The African Union and the Political Affairs Commission, which I have the honor of heading, it welcomes this initiative and the partnership with Africa, as well as the Innov Election project that has just been illustrated, which aims to strengthen the capabilities of regional organizations and electoral bodies in Africa so as to enhance their capabilities and guarantee that it is possible to rise to the challenge stemming from elections being held during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that given the current situation, this is key. We have to understand how to support electoral processes and support African electoral bodies during the pandemic. We obviously know that this is something that we have always been committed to addressing since the beginning of this crisis. We know that African countries so far have taken different approaches. Some have decided to postpone elections, others have followed their constitutions, and their calendars have remained unchanged as a consequence. Ladies and gentlemen, the African Charter for the Democracy of Elections and Governance, under Article 17, calls on African states to hold regular, free, fair, and transparent elections. And we obviously have to bear in mind the importance of this event. This is something that is welcomed by the African Union's Commission for Political Affairs, and we are prepared to provide all of the necessary support to guarantee the success of this initiative. We will ensure that our member states apply all of the pertinent legislation with respect to elections. The African Union Commission deploys observers in at least 15 countries each year, and the aim is to ensure that the different legal instruments and principles are abided by. The African Union Commission for Political Affairs welcomes this new partnership, this new project, and in particular the dimension that aims to strengthen the capacities of electoral bodies in 11 countries and electoral bodies in 6 regional organizations. But apart from this appreciation, I would also like to make a suggestion. I think we have to also take into account the continental methodology of Africa, which covers all 5 regions in the continent. Our hope is that this project in its initial phase may take into account the 5 regions of our continent so as to support increasingly the bodies that are responsible for the running of elections, which, ladies and gentlemen, believe me, need support for ensuring that elections are held in a free, fair and credible way so that the results may be accepted. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to inform participants that our department has just completed a draft directive or guideline which establishes a continental framework so that credible, peaceful, democratic elections can be held whilst bearing in mind the impact of COVID-19 and the public health emergencies in Africa. This set of guidelines suggests a number of strategies for the benefit of member states and all stakeholders involved in organizing elections so as to best address the complex challenges stemming from the COVID-19 emergency and public health emergencies. So the Italian project is very pertinent and certainly, it is necessary to take into account our concerns, and we believe that this is, with some minor adjustments, what we need in the African continent. I would like to end by saying that my hope is that this new project can be implemented as swiftly as possible so as to preempt the possibility of crises occurring before, during and after elections in the African countries so as to meet the African Union's Agenda 2030 objectives so as to guarantee that the UN agenda can be adequately implemented. Thank you very much. And I would like to once again renew my thanks to Italy, the Italian government, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and all of the stakeholders. Unfortunately, I cannot stay with you because there's another meeting starting in 7 minutes, and the subject precisely is that of elections that have to be held in the course of this coronavirus pandemic. In any event, I would like to thank you very much for this invitation, and of course we're at your complete disposal so as to strengthen our mutual cooperation partnership. Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words and for having joined us. And I would like to reassure you that we have taken note of your suggestions to improve this project so as to meet the needs of the African continent's objective.
Which will be Birtukan Mideksa. She's the chairperson of the Ethiopian National Board of Election, and obviously we are keen to listen to her intervention. Ms. Mideksa, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Minister Di Maio, and Excellencies, Deputy Minister Excellencies, and all participants. I just want to use this opportunity to express how pleased I am to participate in this very important meeting and conversation. The chairperson for the National Electoral Board of Ethiopia, just to use this opportunity to give some highlight about where we are in Ethiopia in terms of election management and electoral reform. So, as you might probably know, our country had a political change about 2 years ago, and that paved the way to introduce several reforms, which included electoral reform. So our electoral reform covered, legal reforms, even the board I'm leading, which is the highest decision-making body for the Ethiopian elections. It's reestablished, and for the recruitment process for this board members became very consultative for the first time, and other reforms even in other fields like the judiciary, human rights commission, and every part of those reforms are critical even for the democratic transition we are trying to have in this country for the first time. So while, at this juncture, as you can imagine, in terms of capacity and institutional stature, we were not, especially when we start, we were not in a good shape, I can say. So, introducing legal reform in a way, relatively speaking, is easier to refer to the international standards and translate that into the legal reform, since we had the political will, at least from the government, and the political parties are participating in this process. But building the capacity of the institution and having capable professionals and personnel in place was the toughest part, and we are still, tackling a lot of challenge in that regard. So even so, it was not a part of this new initiative, which is really great, and which I think would help a lot of a lot of African election management body in the future. We were able to get assistance from European Union through the help of ECAS, and ECAS is a partner, and so my staff, even the people in the leadership in the higher level of the organization, benefited a lot from MEPA program and these modules. This is very, very helpful for our reform process. So I just want to congratulate the ministry for launching this very helpful project, innovation election, sorry, Innovation Africa, I guess. Elections, yes. This is a very, monumental kind of, project for election management bodies. And I really appreciate, and I really want to thank the ministry and all collaborators that they selected Ethiopia as one of the beneficiaries in this project. And probably the only suggestion I might have in this regard is probably if there is an opportunity to involve universities and educational institutions in that regard, the exchange could be more two-way, and who knows, at some point we also could be able to support others and to support other election management bodies, and the interpollination of ideas would be more fruitful and productive. So again, my appreciation and my gratefulness is a lot for the launching of this elections project, and I really thank the ministry for having us included in this process. And also, thank you so much for the invite. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Birtukan, for your words. Thank you very much for your time. We know that your agenda is very busy, especially in these days. So we really appreciate your presence here. Thank you as well for your suggestion to involve more local universities. This is perfectly in keeping with our policy. We have very good relations. We have various exchanges, University of Addis Ababa, with University of Dahir. So we will continue, we'll bring them on board because we would like to do this as well as an exercise of capacity building. And we know that there is a huge interest to be more and more closely associated to this exercise from local university in Ethiopia and in other African countries. Having said this, adesso ho il piacere.
Having said this, apologies for the delay, and I now have the great pleasure to introduce our two concluding speeches by Deputy Minister Marina Sereni and Deputy Minister Emmanuel Terre. Deputy Minister Sereni, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Professor, distinguished participants, Madam Commissioner of the African Union, Madam Chair of the NEBE, ambassadors, representatives from the business community, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I too wish to thank all participants and all those who made this event possible. It is a very interesting and up-to-date event. As we've said, the presentation of a strategic policy document devoted to Africa by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs had never happened in the past. Therefore, this is a very innovative initiative through which, along with the institutional dialogue with our African partners, we also wanted to include the essential involvement of all other players in Africa: businesses, civil society, academia, the third sector. And the presence of all of these players today goes to show once again that the people-to-people dimension has a major importance in our well-structured partnership with the continent. It is one based on intense and consolidated political relations with the countries of Africa. And as shown clearly by the partnership with Africa, we wish to strengthen these solid bonds through a global approach, through political relations, security, economic and trade relations, scientific and cultural cooperation. From the geopolitical point of view, the regions in which Italy has a historical and deep-rooted presence, namely North Africa and the Horn of Africa, they're now linked together in a geopolitical arc going from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, passing through the Sahel. And geographical proximity leads me to focus on Mediterranean Africa, first of all, which is a strategic area for Italy in political, security, and economic terms. From Italy's point of view, the Maghreb is increasingly not just the northern border of a continent which is different from ours. It is also the southern shore of a region, the Euro-Mediterranean region, which Italy also naturally belongs to. And in line with this belief, we became the promoters within the European context of the revitalization of a southern neighborhood, which is the base of the shared management of our common Mediterranean resources, based on the environment, energy, culture, and connectivity. We share common opportunities and challenges, beginning with stability and security. For this reason, Italy's commitment is, first of all, aimed at stabilizing Libya, which for too long has been hostage of a crisis which has brought about a crisis in the country and generated instability for the entire region. And now, thanks to the determination of the Libyans themselves, the efforts of the UN within the Berlin process, the country has now embarked on a long and complex path towards normalization, with the hope that the ceasefire can be fully implemented on the ground. Italy protects the negotiation space from internal and external attempts of sabotage and supports the outcome of the Libyan Political Dialogue Forum. With the multidimensional perspective which characterizes our approach to the entire continent, we believe that even for Mediterranean Africa, security and stability cannot be separated from economic collaboration and cooperation. Therefore, Italy intends to provide support to Tunisia in order to overcome the delicate political and institutional phase it is experiencing, with the hope that it will be able to adopt the necessary economic reforms to guarantee effective management of the irregular migration phenomenon. We are continuing to consolidate relations with Algeria, as testified by the recent visit to Algiers by Minister Di Maio, during which the strategic dialogue on the main issues of common interest was institutionalized, and the traditional bilateral cooperation with Morocco, which is a major partner in the region, with which we have recently signed a multidimensional strategic partnership that has revitalized our bilateral relationship. The Horn of Africa is traditionally a region in which Italy plays a leading role, also based on the historic, political, economic, and cultural ties with the countries of the region. In recent weeks, as the minister said, we have paid close attention and have been concerned by the developments of the crisis in Ethiopia, which is our major partner in sub-Saharan Africa, hoping for a resolution of the conflict to ensure peace for the Ethiopian people and for the entire Horn of Africa, and pointing out to the Ethiopian authorities that we expect their full cooperation with international organizations to ensure access to workers and humanitarian assistance in Tigray. In Somalia, Italy has long supported the institutional reconstruction of the country. It is committed in the context of peace and security, contributing to counter terrorism and trafficking, both bilaterally and through our participation in the European Union's missions, including EUTM Somalia, of which we have held command since 2014. Our action also aims to the full reintegration of Somalia within the international community, of which the recent start of the normalization of relations with international financial institutions, to which we strongly contributed, is an important initial step. Furthermore, Italy looks favorably to the dialogue and collaboration between the countries of the region, aimed at addressing the complex political, economic, and environmental challenges together. Within this context, our traditional support for IGAD, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, and its initiatives in favor of peace and integration processes in the region within a framework of collaboration, further supported by our role as co-presidents of the IGAD Partners Forum. Italian action in Africa takes place not just bilaterally, but also multilaterally. We firmly believe in the role played by Africa's regional organizations to promote peace, security, and sustainable development, also as a way of increasing African ownership when it comes to dealing with crises and instability. This belief is testified by the fruitful cooperation between Italy and the continent's organizations, beginning with the African Union, where we were the first EU country, which is something I'd like to underline, to establish a permanent representation, with a view to achieving shared development for the entire African continent. We also support regional and continental economic integration processes, including the recent establishment within the African Union of a continental free trade area, to which we intend to devote special attention during our G20 presidency. In international multilateral fora, Italy is committed to supporting the requests of our African partners and in ensuring that a high level of political and economic attention is always paid to Africa within the UN. Also within the UN, we participate in a number of peacekeeping missions on the continent, and we contribute to activities aimed at preventing conflict, also through offering training and capacity building. Italy, due to its geopolitical location at the center of the Mediterranean and due to its historic relations with many African countries, represents a bridge between Europe and Africa. I feel that this image accurately represents the role our country has in supporting relations between the two continents. We have to facilitate understanding and cooperation, which are already intense and favored by a structured dialogue between the EU and the African Union, between our European partners and our African partners. Generally speaking, Italy is open to cooperation with all international players interested in the stability and development of Africa, also with triangular cooperation initiatives, without giving up on the protection of the values that our partnership with Africa is based on. A partnership between peers, free from hidden agendas, and aimed at promoting and protecting human rights and good governance. Finally, allow me to go back to the people-to-people dimension between Italy and Africa. It is thanks to the relationships between people, students, researchers, the business community, missionaries and volunteers. We have to start from these relations to strengthen our partnership in the future. These relationships are based on shared experiences and traditions, which Italy supports through the private sector and through institutional initiatives, among which I wish to mention the ones which belong to the field of cultural cooperation. In fact, I feel that culture is the foundation for any solid and transparent relationship between partners. And it must be based on deep and complete understanding of one another. And in this context, Italy gives great importance to promoting cultural initiatives in Africa supported by our Italian cultural institutes. We also promote academic cooperation between Italian and African universities so that we can support Africa's rich cultural heritage, a sector in which, thanks to our experience, we can offer a major contribution, as already happens with the over 60 Italian archaeological, anthropological, and ethnological missions supported by our ministry in a number of African countries, each of which actively supports the study, preservation, and enhancement of the cultural heritage of the countries in which they operate, by encouraging cultural and scientific exchanges with local scholars, and which is an important tool to promote peaceful relations based on dialogue, cooperation, and the protection of peace. Culture also means sharing values. It means exchanging good practices. And within this framework, the In of Elections Electoral Training Project, the one we have mentioned during this session, is inserted. It is a project we have supported firmly, also given the difficult conditions brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is fully in line with our traditional commitment to support democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. Also through the important training and capacity building initiatives, such as the one promoted by the Santana Institute and by the ECS Foundation. Let me conclude by reiterating the fact that to Italy, the relationship with Africa has always been a guiding light. And this partnership today, which combines public action and private sector initiatives, is characterized by a multi-sectoral approach, and it extends to all of the areas included in the Partnership with Africa document. With our G20 presidency and with our co-presidency at COP26, this intense relationship will certainly grow even further. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Minister Sereni, for your presentation. Thank you also for the precious activities you are focusing on to convince our European partners on how important it is to see the Mediterranean as a common sea. Thank you for having mentioned the recent Italian initiatives in Libya and the Horn of Africa. Thank you also for having supported the regional and sub-regional integration processes in Africa. Last but not least, it is my great pleasure to give the floor to Emmanuel, Terre, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs. Thank you, Professor de Gutre. We have known one another for very long, and therefore I'm very pleased to have you give me the floor. I have a difficult task today because I have to conclude a very intense event, a very important event, the organization of which is based on the activities of the Africa Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This event goes well beyond the presentation of a document. This document, as we've said a number of times, is very important in terms of Italy's strategy in Africa. And it is the first time that it is such a complex policy and timely document is presented. Dear friends, Italy is increasingly present in Africa. This is extraordinary, I feel, and it is the outcome of a lot of work, which is mirrored in very tangible actions. And I wish to thank Deputy Minister Sereni for having mentioned all of the activities that Italy is working on in Africa. Hopefully, this can be a stimulus to do even more in the future. The metaphor I've always used is the fact that Africa and Italy are the natural continuation of one another. That's why it is so important to consider Africa in Italy's foreign policy, also given the fact that we have a shared past, and this also leads to a shared future. We have a number of projects based on dialogue. We are present in Africa, and we have been present in Africa in all eras. When talking to our African friends, when talking to the various leaders in different countries, we often say how much Italy has been present throughout history in Africa, which shows our persistence and our consistency. I think I have to underscore some of the current challenges which tie into the more general thoughts we shared today, such as, for instance, the crucial element which refers to how sustainable our actions can be when it comes to partnering with African countries. This is a challenge we have to face very seriously because it is very difficult to ensure sustainability. And perhaps in this day and age, we have to take this opportunity, given the fact that the entire context is especially favorable, despite the pandemic and despite the global crisis we are experiencing. That's why one of the topics I always mention in international fora is the role of African leaderships in decision-making processes regarding Africa itself. I don't think it's enough to have African solutions for African problems. I think we must have the possibility of hearing the voices of Africans directly in our decision-making processes. Italy always supports Africa's requests, but without their direct voices, especially without the direct voices of Africa's current leadership, this process will never be fully completed. Bilaterally, as Minister Di Maio was saying, and as Deputy Minister Sereni was saying, in recent years we have truly intensified our presence in Africa and our diplomatic presence in Africa. As of 2016, we have a permanent representation at the African Union. We have also opened up cultural institutions. I myself inaugurated the one in Dakar recently. We also opened embassies in Niger, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and soon, as we've already mentioned, we'll be opening an embassy in Bamako in Mali, which is something I worked very hard to achieve, and I am very proud of all the cooperation we've had within the ministry for the opening of the embassy in Bamako, and this will be also something that will add stability to the Sahel. And speaking of our diplomatic network, since we're here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it isn't simply a representation, it isn't simply an embassy, it is a very dynamic presence. And in fact, broadening our network means intensifying our possibility to meet politically, as testified by my many travels to the continent, Niger, Mali. I just came back from Somalia. All of which goes to show that when we truly cooperate politically and diplomatically and with civil society organizations, we can truly achieve major results. In recent years, we have also worked to promote business forums, cultural events, which were entirely devoted to the African continent. And as Minister Di Maio also said, in 2021, Africa will continue to be at the very center of our international agenda, especially during Italy's presidency of the G20 and during our co-presidency of COP26. Going back to the challenges we currently face, how could I not mention security? The struggle against the pandemic, the strengthening of institutions and governance, the protection of the environment, the creation of employment opportunities, which for young people especially, which is Africa's #1 problem. And we also have to focus on supporting their exports and production. Now, to deal with these challenges, we need the support of everybody, such as the private sector, of course, our very many excellencies, our small and micro businesses, our larger enterprises. We need the support of civil society organizations and the support of the various African diasporas. We have to increase the attractiveness of foreign direct investments, of private investments. We have to struggle against corruption. We have to improve the business climate and infrastructure. We have to invest on human capital, focus on training and capacity building. We have to create integration systems between businesses and the labor market. We also have to incentivize the industrialization and the diversification of production. We have to foster the exchange of know-how and skills, especially in the most important sectors of our economy, such as the agricultural industry. And even when it comes to cooperation development, we are world leaders. Also, when it comes to renewable energies, we are leaders, and we can also focus on healthcare and infrastructure. Africa doesn't want to sell itself out. That's why we Italians can have an important role in their development and in our shared development. In fact, Italy can offer quality and innovation. That's something I often repeat. And this, in fact, ties very well into Africa's need to have quality and into its need to project itself into the future. We can offer opportunities. A Pan-African free trade area is being created, and despite the obstacles it faces, it will be a major game changer. We have to begin with local economic development, and we have to strengthen the institutions of African countries. This is essential, and Africans know this all too well. They ask for our cooperation from this point of view, and they, of course, offer their cooperation in a number of very important contexts, such as migration. When it comes to governance, we have to strengthen the judicial system and other major elements of the rule of law. We have to disseminate a culture aimed at fully respecting human rights. We have to be able to strengthen law enforcement agencies. These are the three basic services to the benefit of populations, and they are essential. There are obviously a number of different projects in this context, and hopefully Mr. Sabatucci will be organizing further events to illustrate all of these wonderful projects we are already working on, including Innov Elections, of course, which I am very fond of, since I myself attended over 20 international missions as an electoral observer, and therefore I truly support this system. But more generally speaking, these projects we've been working on are pilot projects with Italy as a leader, especially when it comes to promoting the rule of law and human rights, which are crucial elements when it comes to the stabilization of the region, and they are constant priorities in the European Union strategy for the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, and Africa more in general. We can do very much. We are doing very much, and we have to ask ourselves what African ownership really means in this day and age. Now more than ever, we have been talking about Africa in Europe and worldwide. It isn't easy to allow the concept of African ownership to turn into something concrete. I think that only by truly understanding the concept of partnership can we do this, by changing the way we refer to Africa and by changing our perception of Africa. A long time was needed before we could talk about partnership in Europe and Africa, no longer a relationship between we as donors and they as beneficiaries. Only recently have we realized And the pandemic has shown this even more, that we are all interconnected, that we are all dependent on one another. This, of course, requires major responsibilities, which can help us think about the future of Africa. As far as the G20 is concerned, which is the first commitment we have, I'd like to remind you of the fact that we will be fully committed to trying to work on broad initiatives. And one which will have a major impact will be decreasing the burden of debt for African countries. This is a battle that we will be focusing on by increasing our ambition, if needed, within the G20 context. Is Africa the continent of the future? My answer is Africa is the continent of the present. Before the pandemic, countries such as Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Rwanda had posted some of the world's highest growth rates. And figures show that there has been a decline in this economic growth, but that is something we shouldn't give up hope on. We have to consider a number of other qualitative elements, such as the importance of Africa's middle class, a middle class which is aware of its potential and it is aware of the global issues around them. Haile Selassie, who was also mentions the term Afropolitan. It is a metaphor which summarizes the conditions of those who are Africans in the world. And I think that this is perfectly visible in Africa's leadership and in its middle class, which is involved in the globalization process, and it has a huge political and social role to play. From this point of view, I think Africa's diasporas also represent an essential qualitative element that we have to consider in our vision regarding Africa. The diasporas that I try to involve as much as possible will be a bridge between the countries of origin and countries of residence, but they are also an extraordinary driver for a number of different activities in all contexts and on all levels, as I've been able to prove time and time again. And they will be increasingly present in the future. The African diasporas have contributed to our development by working in our country through a number of initiatives with the feeling of globalism that we have to admit is a real asset that can contribute to our development from all points of view. I feel that Italy has to develop an Afro-Italian dialogue and an Italian-African dialogue too. And it has to be able to be in line with the needs we have in this day and age. Today is a great day. It is a day on which we celebrate. This partnership with Africa, I think, mirrors the sense of responsibility and the shared awareness that have to mark the relationship between Italy and Africa. The metaphor I often use is the metaphor of a single corridor which starts in Europe and crosses the Mediterranean, the Maghreb, the Sahel, which goes to the Horn of Africa and which leads to the Cape of Good Hope. It is a single corridor of interests, of cultures, of visions. I think we have to ask ourselves whether or not we are ready for the African century. Will we be ready to offer something truly unique? And what can Italy represent? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves, because Africans are asking for more Italy, which means that we are seen as being capable of giving, which per se gives us an extraordinary responsibility. We will certainly be ready if our strategy will be a holistic one, if it will be multidimensional, multi-stakeholder, and if we will be truly able to digest it and become aware of it, so that we can work side by side with our African brothers and sisters. As Ali Marzouki wrote when turning to Africa, You are not a country, Africa. You are a concept. You are not a concept, Africa. You are a flash of infinity, an infinity that we Italians know all too well, which will lead us to the future together with Africa.
Grazie infinite, Vice Minister. Grazie infinite.
Thank you so much, Vice Minister. Thank you so much, Claudia, for this wonderful address. You have admirably highlighted the challenges, but you've also identified some possible responses. You've also reminded us of the need, and this is not easy, to look beyond, let's say, our limits, not just think about what is possible, but also trying to seek solutions. We have to rise to this challenge, and thank you once again for your tireless activity around the world. This is something that we think we need to thank you for and pay tribute to your hard work. I would like to add a comment with respect to the sustainability of what we do as a country around the world and in Africa. I think this is something that the chairperson of the Ethiopian National Board of Elections has rightly pointed out. What we are going to do is to develop capacity building potential involving African stakeholders so that then in turn they can provide training opportunities for others. I think this is the best way to guarantee sustainability of all of our projects. And with this, I think we need to end our event. We have run over the allotted time, but I'm confident that there was huge interest given the extraordinary quality of the presentations. I would like to thank all those who have made this event possible. I would like to thank all of the speakers, and I would like to particularly thank the two vice ministers and our African guests. I would also like to express a very warm word of thanks to the ministry for having organized this. And I'd also like to thank the many participants on one Zoom platform. We had an average of 150 participants. Many more are following us on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you to all of you. And this is a very clear sign of an interest that Italy has vis-à-vis Africa. And this truly historic document has really captured this spirit. It is up to us to work with greater awareness of the need for a team spirit, and this is in our mutual interest. Thank you to all. Thank you to all the participants, to the speakers, both near and far, and I wish you an excellent day, and if there is no opportunity to hear from me in the future, best wishes for the upcoming festivities. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup et bonne fête à vous.